Approximately 3:50 p.m. yesterday afternoon, our public safety communications received a 911 call to respond to the Bow Building, which is 500 Center Street South, for a report of a man brandishing a knife. Building security were advised that there was a man on the 55th floor in a woman's washroom. And they went to the washroom. The door to one of the stalls is locked. They could see footwear underneath. They made initial contact, verbal contact with the person in that stall. They were non-responsive. Security then forcibly entered the stall, at which point the man came out of the stall, rushing past the security guards, forcing his way past the security guards. He was uttering some threats, and he did advise security to call police and call SWAT. At that time, the security guard indicated that he believed he saw the butt end of a knife, and he also recalled the individual saying something about terrorist or terrorism. So the 911 call was made. In speaking to the public safety communication dispatcher, all this information, as it's being relayed from the security guard, was being relayed to our patrol officers as well. There was also a smell of smoke in that washroom, so the Calgary Fire Department was also deployed to the scene. At the time, the security guard did ask our dispatcher about evacuating that particular floor, floor 55. They were advised just to follow whatever protocols they have for that building. The individual, there was no direct line of sight or contact kept on that particular individual. So by the time our patrol units arrived, the individual was out of the bathroom area and was somewhere in the building. That's all we knew, somewhere in the building. Right around that same time, a fire alarm was pulled, so we don't know if it's in relation to this particular incident as part of protocols or the fact that fire department was en route. There was a smell of smoke. Anyway, a fire alarm was pulled. A combination of the time of day, which was now a bit past 4 o'clock, end of the day, the word getting out within the building as to what was going on, plus the combination of a fire alarm being pulled. The entire Bow building was evacuated. We didn't have resourcing in place at the time for the flood of individuals that were coming out from the building. So we were not able to 100% confirm that the individual we were looking for, who was a Caucasian male, about 30 years old, scruffy hair, wearing a black hoodie, red ball cap, and blue jeans, we just weren't able to confirm that that individual was either still in the building or had previously left the building. So we made the decision that we were going to search the entire building, given what was said, potentially what it could, or the impact that it could have, and the fact that we weren't able to determine if that person was in the building. So with the use of our patrol members, bike unit members, our tactical members, canine members, we started a floor-by-floor search of the Bow building that concluded at about 1:30 this morning. We deemed that the building was safe. We were also looking for suspicious packages. It wasn't just looking for a body. We were looking for anything out of place, any suspicious package, keeping in mind that we were operating on the information that we were getting at the time, which was this individual in the bathroom indicating a knife, indicating threats, mentioning of terrorism or terrorists. So we were taking this matter very, very seriously. So we did what we needed to do to ensure the safety of that building and the safety of the folks that work in that building. So it did take a little bit of time. We have since viewed some of the CCTV footage. We are fairly confident that we have a suspect in mind for this, and that's why we haven't, to this point, released anything publicly as to who we're looking for, because we believe we know who we are looking for. So the investigation is now going to continue. We're going to try to identify this person, have him come in, have a chat with him, and we'll give you an update as soon as we do. So at this point, that's what happened yesterday. That's what we were given, the information we were given, the response that came with that, how it was resolved, and where we're at right now. So don't know if there's any other questions that you'd like to answer or ask. Sorry.
was there yesterday for a press conference earlier in the morning, and you have to go through these sliding doors and have a pass to get in. Is there any idea how this man could have gone through that?
Well, we're working with the building security. So there's security folks that are associated to the tenants of that building, major oil and gas companies. There's also a building security company. So we do know that there's fairly tight security at that building. So part of what we're going to look at, and certainly what they're interested in, keenly interested in, is how did an individual get on the 55th floor and how did that individual get into a ladies' washroom. So I know that's a fairly significant priority for those folks as well. We'll continue to work with them as well, but I don't have the answer as to how they may have gotten past that initial security location on the main floor.
So if you, by viewing video in the course of under 24 hours, have said you have a suspect or a person you believe it to be, that would, the obvious inference is that this is someone known to the police. Is this a person who poses a danger?
No, we don't. Well, I guess back that up. We think we know who it is. So we're basing it on what we see in the video. So our patrol folks or one of our investigators thought they recognized who that was, and so that's why we're moving forward with that individual. There is a possibility that there might be some mental illness issues as well associated to this. So we are confident that we're going to be able to talk to that person today. We're hopeful today. But we don't believe that there is, if it is this individual, that there is a public safety risk. So that's the first step that we're taking.
Are we talking about one of Calgary's downtown homeless people?
You know what? I don't know how they know this individual. It's just that one of our investigators thought they recognized this person. So I don't know how they may have recognized them, but I'm sure some of those folks deal with people all the time. I just don't know how the connection is.
I just want to make sure I have it straight. So did people evacuate because they were told to evacuate, or did they self-evacuate because of the fire?
Well, there's a combination of it's time to go home. With there was some discussion even on the initial 911 call about should we evacuate. Our advice from our public safety communication was just follow whatever protocol that might be. But at the same time, there was a fire alarm that was pulled. So I don't know if that was a building-wide fire alarm or if it was zone-specific. But even when we were listening on the radio yesterday, you could hear an audible alarm going off in the background. So it's probably a combination of 3 or 4 things. But the building did evacuate.
Did the elevators stop working in the evacuation?
I don't know that. No, sorry.
Would it have been better than if you could have done an evacuation floor by floor and in that way pinpoint the problem?
Well, and I think that's part of when we're reviewing this, and we've been talking with the security personnel that are associated to both the companies and the firm that provides security for that. There is probably a more organized way to evacuate that building that they would have preferred. So again, this is a great learning experience for everybody involved as to how we might handle a situation like this. Certainly for them, it's how protocols may be looked at or followed into the future for a similar incident. So don't know what the protocols are, don't know how they're supposed to evacuate a building of that size, significant size. So I know that's something they're working on today.
Is there a timestamp on the video? Do we see this person leaving the building? Do we have that, and what time?
Yeah, I don't have that information. I just know that based on what they were able to retrieve after the fact, that they believe the individual that they were looking for left during that time period when everybody else is leaving the building. But again, the search afterwards wasn't only for looking for an individual. We were looking, given what we were told or what he said, we were looking for suspicious items as well.
So over the course of the last, I don't know, month or month and a half, there have been several, I would say, fairly high-profile incidents where buildings have been evacuated and roads have been shut down and that sort of stuff. As a police department, are you worried that there are going to be some people out there who go, hey, look what I can do with a few well-placed words in a Tupperware dish?
I mean, that's a good question. I would rather be criticized for an over-response than asking, can we do that again because we didn't respond appropriately. So there will always be an inconvenience. Again, not every incident is handled that way. It really is based on the initial information we have. So if we had different information other than, and again, this individual wasn't initially confronted by security. The call came in from one of the female staff members who initially was either confronted or came across this person in the washroom and then called security in. So we're relying on the best information that we have at the time, and our response will be according to that information. So in this case, individual in a fairly secure building, 55th floor, armed with a knife, making all sorts of threats, mentions terrorism. It's going to result in a pretty significant police response. So there will be a time that will result in some inconvenience to the public, but there are protocols that we will follow to ensure public safety of the building, the people in the building, and our officers. So I'll never apologize for a big police response, because I think in this case it was the appropriate way to handle it.
Yeah, the thrust of my question wasn't leading to whether or not it was a massive overreaction. That's as you say. It was more, are you worried about copycats? Are you worried
Well,
about people that might go, hey, look what I can do with a Tupperware dish and a few bad words? And
I mean,
alcohol."
sure, that's always a consideration in our minds. Last year we had 44 calls to explosive-related complaints, incidents. 13 of those actually involved in explosives. So, I don't think we're going to hedge our bets. So there will be people that know they can do this, and depending on the information, but we can't let the guard down, and we can't alter our response. We have to respond. That's our job. That's what the public pays us to do. We have to respond according to the information that we have. So if it's good, credible information, we will roll out whatever resources we need to ensure that's handled properly. So that will always be a concern for us. And that's why our public safety communication folks, when they're taking that initial call, they will ask a lot of questions, because we're trying to really narrow down what we're dealing with before we start sending all the resources. And then that first initial car crew, when they respond, they'll get a little bit of information, and depending on what that information is, we'll either elevate it or de-escalate it from that point. So in this case, all the information was leading to the big response that you saw, but you're absolutely right. There's always that risk of copycats in the city.
Is there anything that police can do to try and, I guess, lessen or mitigate the amount of mischief that might take place?
Well, mischief is a criminal code offense. So if there is an individual that through the course of an investigation we can identify made a false complaint, just to see, and we've had situations like that. You're familiar with a few months ago the whole swatting incident, where they would call in, make these false accusations just to see the big police response. Charges were laid on those as well. So if we can identify the person, we can determine through an investigation that it was mischief, that it was not true, we will lay charges, because there is a lot of time and money and resources put into responding to these calls. So if you think it's fun to make up a fake call to watch the police, and we find you and investigate, we will charge you.
Given the number of people in the building, will you guys work at all with the managers of that building, or will you guys sort of review the incident separately?
I think it's a combination of both. Certainly we are working with the tenants of that building, primarily their security folks, in the response, how to handle an incident of this type, the magnitude of this type, how our response mechanisms, what we have in place, how we might improve what we're doing. Certainly, like I say, they're really looking at this one closely as to how somebody managed to get up on the 55th floor. So it is a real collaborative effort, because we will always be called to these. So the more we can work with our partners in these corporate buildings, the better when it comes to situations like this.
We were talking about it being a good opportunity to review, and I know you can't speak for the other companies, but from a police perspective, is there anything in police's response that you changed?
No, the one thing, we have fairly established standards of protocol and response strategies based on the type of call that we're facing, type of threat that we're facing. The numbers, the response numbers usually are mitigated determined by the size of the incident. So when you have a 55-floor building, you're going to need a lot of officers to cover that. So if it were a small 1,000-square-foot office, it probably could have been handled with a handful of officers. But when you talk about smoke in a building, and you talk about an individual with a knife, or even mentioning the word terrorist, and it's a building of that magnitude, it's going to require a lot of resources. So for us, we really have fairly standard response strategies and protocols that we follow. I think what we will do is certainly the discussion for moving into the future will be with our partners in these big buildings, and we do have these partnerships already. just to see how we can be more effective in a situation like this and be a little more organized if it should happen again in the future. And those discussions will be happening.
Do you know how many officers were involved at all?
I don't. I mean, there was a significant response to this.
More than-
Now, I don't know that, but I mean, we had a patrol officers, our tactical unit, K-9 unit, fire department, so there was a lot of resources there.
And it cost a lot of money too.
It does, it does. But we again, we're obligated to, we have to respond. So it does. It's a significant time and resource issue when we respond to these.
Is there any way to recover that money? I mean, if you catch the person in question that launched this gigantic, expensive endeavor, is there any way to recover that money from them?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm not aware of any situation in the past where we have arrested somebody and tried to. I think there is some probably case law somewhere where that has happened, but not to my knowledge here in Calgary. But that'd be something we would discuss with the Crown at the time.
So everyone is back, or allowed back?
Yep. Yeah, this morning it was business as usual. Yeah, we were done there just after 1:30, 2 o'clock this morning.